Rewind-A-Dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly, as we hear from John and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads, and if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show, and if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rewind-A-Dynamite. I am John Pollock, along with Wai Ting. What a dramatic end. How are you doing?
A dramatic end to Dynamite, you mean?
No, I meant to the theme music, but sure, to Dynamite as well.
Okay. Yes. I'm doing well. How are you, John?
I'm doing all right. Can I ask you a favor?
Sure.
I left something upstairs. Can I quickly run up for 30 seconds while you
please.
Tell people how much you love them.
All right, everybody. While John Pollock very unprofessionally decides to halt this live broadcast in order to go upstairs to grab God knows what. I'm willing to bet it's a coffee. Could it be a tea? Likely a decaffeinated coffee is my guess. But I wanted to welcome everybody joining us right now, whether live or in archive form. Video.postwrestling.com. Postwrestling. Wow. Record time. You're lightning fast.
I was pretty close. I was with.
What did you need to
seconds. Get? It was a matter of life or death. I've had a very long day, and I now have a coffee.
Yeah, I was right, everybody. It's a decaf. Is that right?
Of course, decaf. Repping my high school here. This is my this is what I got for 4 years of high school. I got a coffee mug at the end, which I probably paid $20 for, to be quite honest. I don't think I got anything for free.
I don't think I got anything. So
nothing.
You beat me.
Well, there you go. There's high school in a nutshell for you. We are going to get into things as we have started off here with a record amount of interaction. Monday, Jerry Lawler suffered a stroke. This came out on Tuesday, and Jerry Lawler is now recovering in a hospital in Fort Myers, Florida. So, of course, with Jerry Lawler, we know that he has had a history, of course, famously the cardiac arrest back in 2012 on that episode of Raw. Actually had another stroke several years ago in 2018. But today it sounded like a lot of optimism. There was a update from his account that he, with rehabilitation, is expected to make a full recovery. And, it seems as though wouldn't say he's necessarily out of the woods yet, but certainly looking a lot better than some of the early reports were, and certainly the concern given his past history.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you hear about somebody with that prior history, you hear about them having a stroke. It was definitely very concerning, and then a lot of elation. So hopefully it's as full of a recovery as some of these reports are seeming to indicate. Stroke is very serious, very concerning.
Do you think his wrestling is something to maybe consider ending? Like, he literally had a match 3 weeks ago with the Beer City Bruiser. Like, he still does independent dates like every couple. Like, he's fairly active. I'm looking at his cage match here.
12 matches, I believe, in the past year.
He may have had more matches last year than MJF did.
Yeah. I have not seen a Jerry Lawler match since that last one on Raw. So, I mean, professional wrestling is an art form where you can really kind of cater to one's limitations. I don't know.
I mean, he's not doing anything crazy on these shows, but at the same point, you wonder just about, a guy that has had, multiple heart issues. At the same time, like, look at what we were seeing of this man in 2012 and that episode of Raw, and what he came back from that, and he has been wrestling for 10 years since then as well. So I don't know if it's something where maybe he realizes this is maybe not the best thing, but nonetheless, we wish him a full recovery. And yeah, that was scary news to hear, and just had been on WWE programming several times over the last few weeks with the Raw special and then the Royal Rumble kickoff as well. So,
yeah, I mean, at least, we hope for a full recovery, because right now one of the things impacted, of course, is his ability to speak. And for a guy who's a commentator, or at least, panelist, I mean, that's his biggest contribution at this point to the WWE broadcasts, right? So hopefully he can fully recover.
Well, that's what happened. The last stroke he had stated he kept it quiet, and then it was weeks later he noted that he had the stroke and he couldn't talk for almost 3 days before it all came back. So anyway, yes, hopefully all of that is he is on the mend and on the road to recovery. But there you go. Best wishes to Jerry Lawler. We'll continue on and discuss a few other topics before we get into tonight's edition of Dynamite. And SummerSlam is going to the Motor City of Detroit, Michigan at Ford Field, which housed WrestleMania 23. Which I wonder if they will do any retrospectives on that famous Donald Trump, Vince McMahon, hair versus hair promotion for that WrestleMania.
I doubt it.
You don't think they're going to reminisce about their last time at Ford Field with that? I feel John Cena and Shawn Michaels might get top billing for the last time we were at Ford Field video packages, maybe.
Probably that, yeah.
But nonetheless, it's going to be Saturday, August the 5th. Might I add, I think a very underappreciated movement of WWE has been the move to Saturday nights. I love Saturdays a lot more than Sunday pay-per-views.
Honestly, they're about the same to me, but I'm happy for you.
For my schedule, they're a lot better.
Okay.
I like the Saturday. It's nice. It gives you a bit of a buffer day before Raw on Monday. So yes, it is Detroit. I'm going to imagine that much like last year in Nashville, that there will probably be a whole lot of surrounding events. Maybe I don't know if we're going to get Ric Flair's next match, but probably a lot of other events going on in Detroit, which is you're going to draw from a lot of people, probably from Southern Ontario and surrounding states. That Detroit has not hosted like a big WWE event since that WrestleMania in terms of a kind of big stadium level show. So yeah,
it's certainly not Chicago in terms of frequency of wrestling events. Nor I suppose maybe the tourism maybe not as big of a draw as a Chicago nonetheless. You and I are considering it. It's only it's closer than Montreal is.
Yeah.
Coming up for Elimination Chamber. So yeah, if you're in Toronto, maybe this might be the closest you'll get to SummerSlam in quite some time.
Do you see ROH piggybacking off of any events beyond WrestleMania? Like we can already see the tickets for Supercard, they're already at like 2,500 or so, and probably a lot more will move over the coming months. But do you look at ROH as sort of that in between, that we don't want to piggyback with AEW, but ROH is sort of the brand that maybe we do go to cities where there's a big gathering of wrestling fans?
I mean, it certainly would be fair game. I don't exactly really know what's behind Tony Khan's reluctance to piggyback an AEW show off of WWE, other than maybe just
the perception.
That you don't want to be a secondary brand, or like that you don't want to use WWE?
I think so. It's WrestleMania weekend, and I don't think you want to be going.
What's Rampage then?
What do you
piggybacking off of SmackDown every single Friday?
I mean, I don't look at that as so much as though it's like it's WWE's night. And also,
but you are directly following their biggest show. Anyway, I'm just saying, I think you could definitely let that go. WWE, like if if the roles were reversed, they would certainly be piggybacking off of AEW if AEW was the dominant one. So if I'm Tony, then yeah, like run an ROH show, especially for something like an ROH. I think at this point you kind of need every advantage you can get to try to make that a bigger brand. So why wouldn't you?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what a SummerSlam weekend encompasses as we're getting closer to WrestleMania, and we will go over some of the announcements that WrestleMania weekend has had. Going back to last weekend, so the Bellator numbers on CBS are out, and they ended up finishing with just over 1 million viewers, the exact number being 1,068,000 and a 0.18 in the 18 to 49 demographic, and then a 0.11 among 18 to 34. So among the big four networks, they were behind Saturday Night Live, the NBA, Dateline Mystery, college basketball, and then they tied. They were on even footing in the demo with Night Court and Lopez versus Lopez in primetime programming. So They did. I would say, I wouldn't even say these were like average numbers. They were definitely low numbers for prime time, but I think the bar is very low for Saturday night in prime time. They did beat the lead-in programming that CBS provided them, and so it's
is this a new version of Night Court? It's not the John Larroquette.
John Larroquette's on this. Yeah, it's like a.
Oh, it's a new one though.
Yeah.
They rebooted Night Court.
Dude, they've rebooted everything. That's the saddest of entertainment.
Night Court really that popular?
Have you heard what Showtime is doing? First of all, the network is now Paramount Plus with Showtime, something to that effect. It's just a terrible name. And it's just coming up with, like, they want to do Dexter spinoffs. They want to do Billions spinoffs. That's the whole game at this point. It's like take existing fan bases and create plays off of things that worked in the past, and hopefully we can draw people in with.
Did Night Court work that well?
It was huge.
Oh
I was
my
never a
God.
Night Court viewer. No, I didn't ever watch it.
Okay, I mean this could be the greatest show ever, but I mean
It caught your attention, so I mean this is tremendous marketing for
more
John
perplexing
Larroquette.
than anything, but it did as well as the Fedor final match. So
I would put
people
these
are
numbers at, right around what I think would have been expected. Like Bellator is not this red hot brand, nor is the novelty of MMA on network television in prime time anywhere near the importance level. That was interesting last week to see sort of a different generation of MMA fans where, I mean, way you remember with Elite XC and even the Strikeforce cards on CBS, that in and of itself was a huge deal that MMA was getting that level of a platform. MMA is so normalized. It's another sport. It's not as though this is this major risk that CBS is taking. I mean, it was interesting because when you go back to the first Fox special that UFC did, and they were replacing the canvas when there was blood on it because they just didn't want the sight of blood. And this card, the main card, opens with Brennan Ward and Sabah Homasi, and they just have a bloodbath. And it's like there's no controversy attached to this. There's no outrage over this. It's just like it's a sport, and yes, it is a violent sport at times, but it's just nowhere near what it meant a generation ago to be on network television. So to that end, like the idea, like I would still classify these as relatively disappointing numbers, but I would not go so far as to say that this bombed on Saturday night. They, a 0.18 is at this level on a weekend in prime time. Maybe they don't get a prime time slot. Maybe it's an afternoon slot, but it would not surprise me if they get one more kick at going on CBS, which would certainly be to Bellator's benefit because Showtime, it's a much smaller audience that they are playing to. And there's a lot of great fighters in Bellator. They have a very good presentation. Like it's just notoriety. And a lot of it is hearkening to names from the past that as we continue to go forward, there are fewer and fewer of those stars from the past, but they've got some really quality fighters. It's just, they're not known to even the general MMA consumer that's only watching UFC among the big fights. So maybe the afternoon card will grab you if they come back for one later this year. We will see. It's gotta be on Wai Ting standard time zone. Other numbers from this past week. So Raw did 1,866,000 viewers and a 0.55 in the demo. So this was sort of, more of a normal range after the Raw 30th special and last week's show coming off the Royal Rumble. Number one on cable, down 12% in viewers from last week and down 13 in the demo. Actually up with women in 18 to 49 this week. Maybe they just sensed that there was going to be a big surprise at the end with Lita. Maybe a lot. Brandon did have the quarters, and that Heyman Cody Rhodes segment to start off the third hour did tremendous. So, I mean, Cody this week, I mean, the guy has a lot to pat himself on the back for, from the house show figures to that Dynamite segment, pardon the pun, on Monday, and the ratings reflecting it. Like, to do that in the third hour, very impressive. So, I mean, I know that there's a lot of people that are maybe on the Sami Zayn bandwagon, but man, Cody Rhodes is not just a great alternative. I think there's a lot of evidence that it probably is the superior build, and that's not to diminish that Reigns and Zayn could be a tremendous build. I think it's two really great options, and they're making the choice, and there's no evidence so far early that they made the wrong choice.
Yeah, I don't know if at this point I would be able to say that it was superior, but certainly of a similar caliber 2 weeks in, you know? I mean, and really it's more than that, you know, going all the way back from last year's WrestleMania, you know, I think that entire journey for Cody Rhodes, there are going to be some people maybe continuing to, you know, question whether or not Sami Zayn should really continue to go on. But honestly, both of them are so hot right now. I don't think you could go wrong with either. I'm really looking forward to seeing the rest of the story being told.
I really like the idea of both headlining their respective nights, with the Usos night 1 and then the big title match night 2. I think those are your hottest programs, and those should be the main events, at least where we're standing 2 months out, unless something else really catches fire and Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler teaming up is just sends the world ablaze.
I do think that's key, you know, to decreasing any sort of resentment towards Cody. Sami Zayn has to have a prominent, meaningful role at WrestleMania.
I think so, and I think going for the tag titles, I'm dead set on that closing scene in the Bell Center where it's just Owens and Zayn hugging and grown men crying inside the Bell Center. I think that's the way you end things.
Will you shed a tear, you think?
No, I'll just be standing there stoic with my notepad, and you'll just laugh at me and probably be videotaping me without me realizing it.
It might be the other way around.
Yeah. Dude, I can't tell you how many people I'm hearing now from that are like planning to go to this, like making travel plans to go to this show. I don't know if there's enough tickets left to accommodate all this. This is a big show. It's going to feel incredible that night. Like they have this feels bigger than the Rumble to me.
What's pretty amazing is the fact that they managed to book Montreal for this particular show, you know, at a time, like, could they have expected at the time that they booked it that Sami Zayn, a hometown guy, would be this hot?
I mean, when did they announce this? It was probably they probably booked it like well before they announced it, but, and that just goes to show you, like, this angle started in August and Zayn was just supposed to be there a week or two for some comedy. So yeah, it's kind of a happy accident that you're here, but also, you know, once this did catch fire, knowing that you had that destination coming up, probably was not the worst thing in the world to know, hey, we're going towards this place and let's maximize it for all it's worth. Other numbers to get to. So NXT on Tuesday, there was a lot going on Tuesday. Wei, were you watching either LeBron James breaking the scoring record of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or were you watching Biden's State of the Union address?
I was watching Ding Dong Hello.
Well, a very painful ending for Gigi Dolan in that segment going into the door. But they did 562,000 viewers, a 0.11 in the demo. So they did not go up against the NBA game, which was number 1 on cable with LeBron breaking the record. But they did go up against the State of the Union, and that was, you know, covered by multiple networks, cable and network. So only down 4% in viewership, but it was their lowest viewership since December. Lowest demo number since May of last year, dropping 19%. Although one demo that did very well was 18 to 34. They increased 10%, including a big jump with women in that demo, but 35 to 49, big declines there, and probably some of that you can attribute, maybe even a lot, to the State of the Union. So that was NXT on Tuesday night, a lower than usual number, but certainly an asterisk you can put next to it with the competition. And then MLW premiered on REELZ with MLW Underground Wrestling. And while the State of the Union had ended by this point, they were going up against that big NBA game. Although, once we're talking about a lower audience, I don't know how volatile a MLW audience is going to be compared to something, you know, larger like an NXT. But for show number 1 on the new network, they did 79,000 viewers and a 0.03 in the demo. The only, you know, so REELZ is in around 38 million homes. So the best comparison is that time they were on Vice a number of years ago and did something like 41,000 viewers, which was considered very, very low at that point. So to put this into context, Access TV is in, you know, just a few million less homes than REELZ is in, and Impact has more viewers than MLW, at least week 1, but MLW does have the higher number in 18 to 49, looking at how Impact's been performing this year after 5 weeks. So I did watch episode 1, and these were matches that were taped back in October. So these it wasn't from the most recent tapings this past weekend. But we saw Alex Hammerstone beating EJ and Duca, who got to appear on both MLW and AEW Dark within hours of each other and also taped months apart. That was on there. They also, got a lot of personalities onto it. Alex Kane, who's a very good talker, and Enzo, Real One, as he is now going by. He was featured, like the first 15 minutes of the show was him out there and rapping and then getting knocked out by Mance Warner, which sets up a street fight for next week. And overall, like it was, MLW certainly has its own vibe to it, its own feel. You're not watching that show and immediately just being taken back to, former WWE talent that are now here. Like they certainly have their own identity to them. But as we are always bringing up, Way, it's probably not going to be people's number one priority each week. And it is finding that hour. Are people going to find an extra hour in the week to be seeking this out? I would say for the first week on REELZ, I would say this is a very respectable number given the level that MLW is at. I don't think people are looking at this to be anywhere near an NXT, and it's going to be sort of at that Impact level, which we see with Impact. It's, that is... it is tough to garner that attention, even on a network that's in, 35 to 38 million homes. It's a lot less than some of the bigger ones.
And in general, I think just the perception of growth for the company, more content hours, more homes and eyeballs being placed on it.
This is a major upgrade from beIN Sports, like significantly.
Yeah, and more options and more ways for people to actually check it out if they do in fact hear about a show that a lot of people are, or a match. I mean, that a lot of people are talking about. If people are talking a whole lot about Alex Hammerstone and who's this guy? Where do I check that out? Well, I might have REELZ, so maybe I'll go check that out. Is there a Canadian availability for this?
Not yet. And I asked about that right when they announced it and have not heard back of like a Canadian window for this. I don't even know like what their like YouTube strategy is for this show either. But yeah, that's kind of limiting. Like I was even getting questions because REELZ did a bunch of wrestling programming this weekend. On Sunday night they did docs on Owen Hart, on Roddy Piper, and a new one on China. So it's a network that it's US based, so that is going to limit international audiences. But they were stating at the time that they were hoping to work something out on that front. So that is the MLW number. And then WrestleMania week, I wanted to talk a bit about this on Monday. So shows are starting to take shape. So just to give everyone a look at some of the highlights already. So Thursday is shaping up to be quite the busy day, which include a DDT show, New Japan Strong Style Evolved, the Mark Hitchcock Memorial Super Show, which is always crazy dream matches and is always like one of the big shows of WrestleMania week. And they have Will Ospreay announced for that. Bloodsport. And then today, Impact and New Japan have announced a co-promoted show, Multiverse United, and they have already announced Moose against Jeff Cobb, Josh Alexander against Kushida, and Will Ospreay versus Speedball Mike Bailey. So Ospreay is doing the Mark Hitchcock Memorial Show in the afternoon, and then this is taking place 11 p.m. our time, Eastern time. So that's like two big matches that Ospreay is going to be doing in one day. And this New Japan.
Beyond that, John, like just to cut you off, we got Mike Bailey taking on Will Ospreay and Kota Ibushi in the same night.
That's right. That's crazy? Right. He's on the Bloodsport show the same night with Kota. Yeah, Speedball is out to have. He was the star. He was the WrestleMania weekend star last year, and he's going to try to repeat. Yeah, well, Ospreay is going to be. Like, I imagine he's going to have a handful of matches. But Bailey was incredible last year. He's been incredible all year long. So that's going to be quite the one-day performance that he's working with Ibushi, and that's at 4:00, and the next show is like 7 Pacific. So he's not even has all that much downtime between the two shows either. Wow, that's nuts.
8 Pacific, it says here.
8 Pacific. All right.
Or for Impact, yeah.
And then later that Thursday night is For the Culture that has become a staple for GCW. Friday has Supercard of Honor, Jimmy Lloyd's D-Generation F, a DDT versus GCW event, SmackDown, which is paired with the Hall of Fame, Spring Break, Way's favorite show of the year, including his favorite match of the year, Tokyo Joshi Pro is Friday night. Prestige has a show. And then GCW Emo Night.
Yeah.
Exciting stuff.
So again, as you've investigated, all the collective shows are part of this Fight Plus.
It
deal.
is, yeah. And I have not found out yet about the trial, but yeah, $4.99. Your subscription for Fight Plus gets you all the collective shows, which there's 11 of them, including Spring Break and Bloodsport. Are
there any other WrestleMania non-collective shows that that might be a part of this as well? I mean, either way, it feels like it's a no-brainer, especially if you're somebody who's used to paying for even a single GCW.
Yeah, I mean, dude,
show.
The collective that includes this emo fight, includes For the Culture. It's the Degeneration F show. Yeah, it's beyond worth your value for $5 that you're getting all of these. And then Saturday's also got Effie's Big Gay Brunch, which is part of the Fight Plus package. Gringo Loco's World on Lucha, which was an excellent show last year. Stand and Deliver, and then the first night of WrestleMania, and and then the rest of the WWE stuff on Sunday.
I mean, part of me really wishes I could be in the city to try to jump to all these shows, but another part of me is really thankful that I'm not, because I don't know how I'd be able to catch even a quarter of all that,
It's going to be a crazy period. Like, just the DDT show. Like, they've got Konosuke Takeshita against Yuki Ueno. That's going to be phenomenal. They're bringing in Jun Akiyama, Kazusada Higuchi. Like, they're bringing in all the big guns for these DDT shows.
I'm very curious if Kota Ibushi makes an appearance anywhere else, besides Bloodsport. I mean, attached to the collective, and they're working with the DDT. Is that a potential spot for him to make an appearance?
Yeah, I mean, I think you would wonder if he gets booked on the Supercard of Honor show.
Yeah, sure, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah,
the whole wrestling world will be in town.
All right. And then the last note here, I just want to make mention that this Saturday is UFC 284, and it's a really big main event. Like, this is, if you are a follower of the sport, to simply see the best fight the best, I don't know if you could ask for a better fight this year than Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski. This is the Makhachev just won the lightweight title from Charles Oliveira, so this is his first title defense against Volkanovski, who many would view as the top pound-for-pound fighter in the world, who is the champion at 145, coming up to lightweight to try and become a double champion. And a lot of people are favoring Makhachev, which is completely justified, but I am looking at Volkanovski as a very real threat to Makhachev. Like, this is going to be an incredible fight. I don't know if this is going to be your fight of the year. It's going to be, just to me, though, the stakes, you could not ask for a better fight. Like, it is very rare that you get two people in their prime at the top of their respective weight classes fighting one another. And you look at these records, each has one pro loss on their records. Volkanovski has never lost at inside of the UFC and has won 22 straight fights. So that gives you a sense, and a guy who owns 3 victories over Max Holloway. So an incredible resume that both men possess. So this is a huge fight that's happening on Saturday as well. Yair Rodriguez is fighting Josh Emmett to crown an interim featherweight champion. So that would likely set up a challenger for Volkanovski later this year, depending on how things go in the main event. So Josh Emmett is someone, he's 37, has certainly beaten a who's who to earn this, at very least, an interim title fight, beating Michael Johnson, Mirsad Bektic, who at one point was a surging prospect, Shane Burgos, Dan Ige, and Calvin Kattar. So that's a really impressive list of 5 consecutive wins that he has had, but is getting up there at age 37, had a brutal fight with Jeremy Stevens several years ago. And Rodriguez, he's only had 4 fights in the last 4 years. So his last fight was the fight with Brian Ortega that barely got started before Ortega suffered a shoulder injury, and the fight ended within seconds back in July. But he's an extremely dynamic fighter, and I think this is one where it could be, certainly you look at Josh Emmett over the course of 5 rounds, he is extremely, extremely durable. But Yair Rodriguez, he has his dynamic striking is probably going to be a key, especially early in this fight. So it's two very quality main events. This is the card that's happening in Australia. Undercard, like there's some interesting fights, but it really does come down to the top two fights. But this main event, I think, is as good a main event as we might see this year in terms of guys at the prime of their careers. So that's Saturday night, and Eric Marcotte and I will be going live Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern, as we discuss UFC 284, which is the start of a stretch of UFC pay-per-views. They've got, in March, they're running 2 pay-per-views, which include the return of John Jones on March 4th, and then the rematch between Leon Edwards and the star of Wakanda Forever, Kamaru Usman, coming up later in March in London, England, which I'm 3/4 of the way through Black Panther 2.
I can't imagine like stopping like movies, you know, like how many viewings have you had to get you 3/4 of the way?
2 sittings. So the third one, I'm going to finish it. I don't have time. I don't have time to sit down for 2.5 hours. Like I watched this till like 10:30 last night, and then I had to watch NXT. I had to watch MLW, and then that was it. That was my Tuesday night way. Couldn't even squeeze in the State of the Union address.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. All right. Way. On Tuesday, we traveled to 1993 to talk about tabloid terrorism. What did you find out of this Rewind-A-Way that was enlightening? 5 commandments.
That Hulk Hogan is a very interesting person. And his portrayal in 1993, I mean, oddly relevant to the Hulk Hogan that I think we know of today. Yeah, this was a couple editions of Raw from February of 1993, 30 years ago, back when Raw was only 1 month old. And this took place in the lead up to WrestleMania 9. So those of you who tuned into Rewind-A-Way last month, where we talked about WrestleMania 8 and Hulk Hogan's last appearance, at least of that particular time frame, this picks right back up when he makes his return to come to the aid of one Brutus Beefcake who had his face demolished, face smashed by the Halliburton briefcase of one IRS and Ted DiBiase and Money Inc. But, you know, the real talk of this entire review was a bit of a hidden gem of a sit-down chat that Hulk Hogan had with Vince McMahon, talking, sort of, you know, making reference to at least part of the reasons why he was not present, talking about a lot of the media's coverage of his personal life and the mistakes that he's made. It's a wonderfully interesting piece of TV that I don't recall many people speaking about from WWF in 1993.
Yeah, so if you go through the last couple of Rewind-A-Ways, you can certainly weave through our 1992-1993 navigation of the WWF. So this is our latest chapter, the return of Hulk Hogan. This is available at postwrestlingcafe.com for all members. $6 gets you access to the entire archive, including 125 editions of Rewind-A-Way, including this week's, as we go back to February of 1993, reviewing 2 editions of Raw. And we will be back, as we are every Friday night, with Rewind-A-SmackDown. So that is all coming up this week. Plus, we have postmarks dropping on Saturday. Martin Bushby, the great man, will be joining David and Bruce. And as I mentioned, Sunday, I'll be live with Eric at 1 Eastern on the YouTube channel. And, of course, WrestleNomics Radio with Brandon, Chris, and Jesse.
Mm-hmm.
The seal of approval from Wai Ting.
Oh, you're always fantastic, yeah. Should I do more? Would you like more words of affirmation?
I could go for the occasional.
You do a great job.
You could clap.
I think your sweater's really nice today.
Oh,
you know,
thank you.
Camera looks good. Voice sounds good. Internet connection is great. So I think you're doing a fantastic job, as always, John. I'm proud of you.
I was very frustrated when I logged in and you said my audio wasn't working.
Turned out it was my problem.
Yeah, so. It was yours. It was me. I was all set. I double checked to make sure it's the right mic input, so you don't have to correct me, because I know that's a little tiresome for you to remind me.
The echo cancellation was still on, but nonetheless.
I'm sorry. I did not turn that off. I know I didn't. But now I will remember, okay? I'm definitely I need to establish patterns. And then you got to remind me like 3 or 4 times, and then the 5th, I'm good.
I'm the same. Like my wife, I'm the same to my wife. Like with the baby, like she'll tell me a number of things that I'll just kind of nod my head and say yes because there's so much of it, and then I'll completely forget, and she'll kind of get on my case. So repetition is definitely the key.
Well, tonight it was the MJF show. I maybe not even the MJF show, but I will say tonight the show was all about putting as much heat as possible on MJF, and I would say they succeeded in, if that was the task tonight, of making him the most hateable world champion going into this pay-per-view, because he was all over this card.
Yeah. I would say he was already kind of there, but you're right. Like this tonight definitely kind of put into focus the match with Bryan Danielson, the main event of Revolution.
So, and MJF starts out the show coming out, tons of boos, another great Texas crowd. They were in El Paso on Wednesday night, and he's got his MJF 2024 jacket that if they put these on sale for $200, these fans would be buying up.
$200 feels like kind of cheap actually these days for a jacket.
I mean, that's a title belt. Yeah, you could get the combo. $500 for the jacket, the belt, and the
even that
scarf.
sounds pretty. Even that sounds kind of reasonable actually today. Those belts are pretty. Like those belts alone are $500.
Bray Wyatt really smashed open the belt market, didn't he? A few years ago.
With the Fiend belt smashed open.
That thing was, how much was that going for? That was over. I don't know. That was in the thousands, I believe.
Is that right? Wow.
It was something nuts. So this is our first. It's championship fight night because the 4 champions. There's all implications between title eliminators and then 2 title matches to follow. So we're kicking off with MJF and Konosuke Takeshita.
It was more of a battle of the belts than battle of the belts.
You're right. We've never got this level of importance attached to a battle of the belts. So they should have just called it battle of the belts.
You don't want to devalue a Dynamite like that.
We've established championship fight night. Battle of the belts.
Yeah.
So MJF, he goads Takeshita into shaking his hand, and Takeshita, the good sport that he is, shakes his hand and then gets kicked in the gut. MJF is then using Paul Turner as a shield, but Takeshita comes back, brainbuster. He gets on top. He does the Eddie shuffle, and then the whole place is chanting for Eddie, who continues to be the most over babyface in 2023.
And consistently referenced. I thought there was a part of me that felt like almost I was expecting every match to have some sort of Eddie reference, and I think I only counted 2, so I applaud them for holding back. But this would have been a night where I think I would have welcomed an Eddie spot in every single match in El Paso.
Takeshita countered a tombstone to hit a bastard driver and then deadlifting MJF into a German. But during the match, MJF is working on the arm and Takeshita is constantly clutching at the arm, and it would slow him down at different points and, of course, weakening it for the Salt of the Earth, which he would apply. Takeshita rolls out, lands a Tope Con Hero, and then rolls down the knee pad, and MJF again bailing to the floor. And MJF, behind the ref's back, kicks the rope into Takeshita, and there is a power bomb onto MJF's knee, and then he starts selling his knee after delivering this power bomb, and he's selling it. So Takeshita comes back, Blue Thunder Bomb, knee strike, and then MJF gets his foot on the rope, and the audience is very much into this, and they are sucked in that Takeshita might pull this one out. And he goes, Takeshita, for a springboard into a Senton Atomico, loses his balance, but then resets and goes for it, missing the move, and then MJF pounces on him, Salt of the Earth, rotates over, hyperextending the arm, and Takeshita has to submit in 13 minutes and 19 seconds. You could see like the slip up off the balance, but I love that one error did lead to the end of the match. Like that caused him to miss the move, and then MJF got the advantage, and you kind of like the story here that one mistake and that cost him the match by the end.
The error added to the match, and they played it up in a way that thankfully, fed into a spot where he was supposed to get countered anyway. So I thought it was a great match. These MJF matches are very rare. He evidently wrestled less than Jerry Lawler last year, but every time he wrestles, it feels like an attraction. I don't like. When was the last time he did a TV match against Punk?
Ricky Starks.
Oh, Ricky Starks. Okay. Well, nonetheless, it's incredibly rare, and it's not just because he rarely wrestles. It's not just because he can talk his way up into making you feel like his matches are big. It's because the matches are really good. You know, his in-ring standard is incredibly high, and I thought tonight
we
was no
skipped the
different.
spot where he took the lariat off the top turnbuckle and he flipped and landed on his feet. I mean, that was I'd almost be saving that spot for a time when you want to get that reaction, because it looked cool as hell.
Yeah. Well, how many people do like a top rope lariat though? You know, I guess it's one of like Takeshita's signatures, right? But yeah, it was really cool. Like, and that's the thing. MJF certainly does take shortcuts, but he shows enough skill in these matches to be absolutely credible, and you completely need that as a champion. You can't just have a champion cheat in every single aspect, and you know that's kind of what you tend to have with like a Money in the Bank briefcase winner who just kind of like squeaks by, loses every single week, and just squeaks by with that gimmick. MJF isn't just relying on gimmicks; he's definitely relying on gimmicks to get you 15% of the extra way there, but you know the other 85% is pure skill. Yeah, and I think he's very much like a Ric Flair in that sense. Takeshita, fantastic selling of that arm throughout this entire match. You know, keeping attention on it the entire time throughout every single one of his moves. You know, there's going to be some debate, like there was, I'm sure, last week about, you know, just even him being a part of this match when he was just starting to get wins on TV, when he was just starting to build momentum. Putting him up against a champion where, you know, he inevitably lost, does it derail that momentum? And seeing the result here, I really don't think so. I mean, he went 20 minutes. Was that how long this was, John? Like, felt like 20 minutes.
It was just over 13.
Okay, well, it felt substantial enough to feel like 20 minutes, but okay, fine. 13 minutes with the champion here. And it was more than 50-50. Like, it was very even, and it was not like the type of match where he was completely outclassed. In fact, he was sort of like the dominant one for a lot of it. Well, at least with arm injury aside. But, you know, Takeshita, to me, felt like a very credible world champion level contender coming out of this. And he only lost because, you know, of, the arm. So I think this helped achieve an elevated status for him as somebody who can, convincingly beat a champion. So I don't think he was hurt, personally.
Not at all. Like, this audience was all behind him. They believed he could win. As I said last week, I think you could have had him win. I understand not doing that. You are building towards this pay-per-view, and to do this for 1 week. Like, I am very high on Takeshita, getting to that next level that this audience sees him in right now. You always want to be able to make sure you get the timing right and you don't ever lose the audience that loses faith, but I don't think they are anywhere near that with Takeshita. And whether this culminates with the Don Callis involvement or something else, I just think, like, every time out he has been, he just has such a unique charisma about him. He's a terrific performer, but it's the whole package that he has, in my estimation, that this was a great showcase to start off, and it tells you that this audience, like, they believe that this guy could have won this match.
But audiences are certainly right to be skeptical, because there are a lot of guys on AEW who kind of play the supporting act. That they'll have killer matches and they'll gain a ton of steam, like a Dante Martin, for instance, and they'll always lose, and you always wonder when it is that they'll actually get a push or if they'll just continue to play second fiddle. So I think follow through is incredibly important. Is Takeshita still, at this point, I mean, he should be playing sort of like a supporting act for Bryan, and I thought he was very effective here. But beyond that, can they cement a bigger role for him?
Well, I think it helps that he is attached to who is being presented as the top babyface right now in Danielson. I think that link helps a lot. After the match, MJF knocks down referee Paul Turner and then takes his ring and busts open Konosuke Takeshita, and he is bleeding. And I'm thinking, man, that's a good amount of blood. It would. This was tonight's tribute to Muta for Danielson and Takeshita.
I think that's every Dynamite, actually.
Well, there was a lot of bleeding to come on this show. So Takeshita is left for dead in the ring, and then Danielson runs down, chasing off MJF. We hear from Samoa Joe, who is once again double champion, and he calls Darby a worthy adversary, but Wardlow is not. I've taken your title. I took your hair. I have nothing left to take. And I know that you are a man with many secrets, and I will expose you if you come for me, and then I will take everything from you. So he kind of contradicted himself that what is there left for me to take from you, but then noting I can expose you and take everything. So he knows that there is hidden value left in Wardlow that is still for the taking.
I mean, after you've taken a man's man bun, I don't know what possibly you could threaten him with. I mean, I think Wardlow has nothing to lose at this point.
Jamie Hayter and the Bunny is our next title eliminator, with Penelope Ford in the corner of the Bunny. So this match saw Jamie Hayter get snap suplexed into the steps, and then we go to the commercial. This match was 6 minutes, and like half of it was in the picture-in-picture.
So, coming back, you might want to finish the rest of the match, John, because there wasn't much of it. First of all, I'll finish it. I'll do your. I'll take that off your plate for now, because we come back from break, and Jamie Hayter is essentially kind of beginning her comeback. She delivers one exploder, delivers another exploder that looks incredibly awkward, and they go right to the finish. So.
And the commentators could not ignore it either. Like, they're trying to come up with Bunny was trying to block the exploder, and she didn't quite get all of it, but it did not look good.
Well, I definitely wonder if Bunny got hurt off the exploder. It looked like a really bad landing. She did not really. She got up for the lariat afterwards, but I mean, I personally wonder if they had to cut this match short because something.
It certainly felt short. It certainly felt short because it was just. Like, they came back from break and it was almost immediately like going to the end sequence. So hopefully that was not the case. But yeah, it was very quick, and I mean, this was not any kind of standout.
Unfortunate, really, for Bunny. Who if in fact, first of all, we hope that she's not injured, but she's had like some, it's tough. It's been tough for her to build any sort of meaningful momentum, I would say. During her time on TV. Sometimes played with injuries and sometimes just maybe like, with these sort of like false starts. But she is one of those people that's just kind of like in a supporting act role right now.
Renee interviewed Toni Storm and Saraya and called Hayter a loser, just like everyone else here in AEW. And to emphasize this point, they bring in Leva Bates. The librarian is back. And they ask her what her name starts with. L, like loser. So they beat down Leva Bates, spray paint the L on the back of her, and Saraya says, "We're not here to make friends. We're here for the belt."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think this like Saraya Toni Storm gimmick has been very one note, and I guess when you don't have that much TV time, you don't really have exactly, like an opus in you. You're really kind of left with these one things. But I'm not really. I haven't been into these sort of like spray paint types of things. I think the thing that like their act needs the most is some form of substance to explain why they don't like AEW originals, or why they feel like they themselves are superior. I mean, I feel like Saraya did a better job of giving me depth for a heel character in her first AEW promo than she has now as a full-on heel. I guess the spray paint thing is kind of cute, but I think without like real substance in her promos to back it up, it feels really empty. So
they've missed that. Like, both of them have turned, and you've never understood why have we gone from they were these popular baby faces to they hate everybody now. Like, you missed that bridge from one to the other, and I don't think you can really. It's just you're right. Like, it's very surface level at this point. Like, we are playing bad guys now, and that is why. Yeah,
she's a generic heel, and it's been like Saraya's run has at this point been pretty disappointing. I would say, like, just not even talking about in ring because we haven't seen a ton of in ring, but just even from her promos, which I thought were her biggest strength, I've been pretty disappointed. And I think Toni Storm's kind of being dragged down, at this point too. Like, I thought she was a pretty successful babyface, but as sort of like, in ring she's great, but as a heel character, I haven't seen enough from either of them.
Well, that was not the promo I think people are going to be focusing on from this show. Instead, we go to Lexi Nair, who is called and summoned into MJF's locker room. And there he is, seated on the bench, and says that Takeshita is good, but no match for him. Nobody is. And I get treated like a scumbag by these fans. And he tells Danielson, a man doesn't know what he's made of until he meets adversity. So he tells us a story. Back in junior high, when he was going around with all of his football buddies, these same buddies that he once told us he detested these people. Didn't these people make his life hell?
Well, I'm sure he has more than one.
Okay.
Friend.
This is junior high, yes. So he talks of a night when he was with his high school crush, who he says for legal reasons we're going to call Liv. And he says that he had been racking up a lot of speeding tickets. So then one night he gets into his car with Liv, and she was distracting him by performing. I cannot believe that we saw this on. I always go back to that one of Tony Khan's first scrums where he's like talking about like these hardcore matches. Oh, you will never see that on television. It was like this line of like just things we could not do on television. It's like, dude, there is no line to me of what TBS or TNT are willing. It's like we want to make like blowjob references. We want to slice dudes open and bleed. We want barbed wire, like anything. I don't think TNT and TBS are too squeamish at any of the content that AEW has. So as this act is being performed on MJF, he hydroplaned off the road in the car, and then as he went to hit the brake, hit the accelerator by mistake, crashing into a telephone pole, and he looked over, and Liv's head had gone through the windshield. And then he sees the sirens in the background, and you're wondering where this is going. It's like, is this man like acknowledging like a criminal, like did he murder this woman? Like, but then he explains that she was alive because he could tell that she was breathing. So the type of person I am, Danielson, I switched seats with Liv so that he didn't get. I was gonna say, like, you might get more than like a ticket for this. Like this, I don't know if your speeding tickets are gonna be your downfall for this. I don't know if that was necessary. It's like, oh crap, I've got speeding tickets. This could make this incident real bad. Anyway, he says there are winners and losers in this world, and there will be no Iron Man match at the pay-per-view. Danielson will never win the title. I don't know if this message required that level of story to explain that I will do anything to win a match, but I guess point conveyed.
It definitely was a shot I wasn't expecting, for a wrestling program tonight. And I think all in all, like, it achieved what the intent was, and that's to make you really hate MJF.
The point was at the end of this, they did not even want people that are, they didn't even want people to applaud like, well, this is a great promo in pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Like, you wanted people to be offended by this character.
We were there in Newark, where, I mean, he was directly playing off of the pseudo babyface vibe to his advantage in the match with Moxley, and for this build towards Bryan, he's going deep into heel territory, to the point where even people who respect MJF will try to find it hard to want to cheer for him with content like this, with content like what he had with the Takeshita promo from weeks back. And
that to me is clearly something they're going towards, where it's going as close to the line as possible that will offend and upset some of your audience, like playing off of racism, playing off of like this
misogyny.
Exactly. Like, they are pushing
vehicular
those buttons.
manslaughter.
Well, she lived. So anyway, my question would be, if there is a MJF babyface run to come, like, do you just like retcon all this stuff and be like, it was mind games, or like what is your out at the end of the day to make this a redeemable character down the road?
Wrestling fans have a short-term memory, I suppose, and we tend to forgive a lot once a babyface is fighting for us. So I'm assuming this won't be brought up.
Anyway, this was quite the promo.
Yeah.
Then it was the Garcia-Guevara Gauntlet, which you were right, Way. We were just going to get all of this in one shot, which was the right call to make. I don't think we needed to stretch this out on multiple weeks. So, I mean, the first two were just nothing. Starks speared Angelo Parker in a minute 12. Menard runs in and gets rolled up. So we are instantly going to the main match, which Guevara and Garcia both come down and surround the ring. Starks goes after Guevara, but then Garcia jumps him. So they reveal it's Garcia that is taking the match. And they went 7.5 minutes here. It included Garcia using a deep guillotine that Starks powerbombed out of, a Northern Lights bomb by Starks and getting the audience chanting for him. Garcia stops Rochambeau, and they're both on the edge where Starks hits another spear. And then on the floor, Ricky Starks is like getting his footing, and suddenly a fan in a lucha mask runs at him with a Judas effect. And your commentators are all, what's going on? It looked like a spinning elbow or something, and it's like we've got to, I guess, play dumb here. Like, what could this be? And Garcia rolls Starks into the ring, pins him, and then, dude, I'm thinking the announcers are like the only people in this building that could be confused here. But then Jericho takes the mask off. Dude, you would have thought the entire arena was like, oh, it's Jericho. So maybe they were... this was apparently a hell of a surprise for many people. Like, maybe a fan just hit the Judas effect.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I think it would be a bigger swerve if like it wasn't Jericho underneath the mask, and maybe he'll be doing that in the future. You know, he'll be playing exactly with that. But it's one of the Jericho tropes, is it not? You know, him donning on a mask and coming into sneak attack, and wouldn't you know it, these baby faces fall for it every single time.
So it looks like Starks is going to have to go through more hoops to get to Jericho. At the very least, now there is a reason that he wants to get to Jericho. Like, it is now, he has failed in this run-up, so there's a reason for him to continue going after Jericho. And this stretches us out to probably get you to the pay-per-view, you would assume, is the destination.
You would assume so, absolutely, yeah. You know, Starks has had the upper hand in this feud most weeks, I would say. He's already pinned Jericho, so I would say... yeah, you're left with the audience not necessarily caring that much about him wanting to get revenge. This night was about him, you know, having a reason to gain that revenge, and they certainly like stacked the odds against him. I mean, it was not like this was a fair one-on-one attack here from Jericho. You know, they put the guy in a gauntlet match, had him beat two guys, had him face a third, and then we had the sneak attack with the mask. So they're really doing everything they can to like really protect Starks, while at the same time, you know, heating the program enough. I'll say, like, I was a little bit disappointed by the entire thing, because, like, I think when you promise a gauntlet, you're kind of like, there's sort of like an expectation of like a very impressive like physical feat that you are going to see from Ricky Starks tonight. And I mean, these 2.0 matches were what, a combined minute and a half. You know, those were the first two opponents. This essentially became half a Daniel Garcia Ricky Starks match, and it wasn't exactly the, you know, exhaustive affair that I think maybe a gauntlet promises.
I was okay with the length. I didn't need it to be any longer, especially on this format of a show on Dynamite. It just really doesn't lend itself, unless you're going to, you know, earmark, you know, 25 minutes for this or something like that. But yeah, that was the angle. Renee is with Billy and the Acclaimed, and Billy is going to stay in the back tonight as he is being pulled in both directions with the Acclaimed and the Guns. I guess he wasn't really going to stay loyal to this pack, though. First sign of trouble, he's out there.
You know, in case of emergency, you know, call Daddy Ass, and there was an emergency.
The next angle, I thought this was great. Renee is in the trainer's room with Bryan Danielson and Takeshita, who's being dealt with after his attack by MJF, when all of a sudden, as Danielson is speaking, the door slams shut by Jose. And then you hear in the background Rush's theme song beginning to signal the match, and Danielson is locked in the trainer's room. I thought this was so clever and led to
and poor Renee, too, and this cameraman.
How can we get out of here?
Oh, no.
Well, I mean, this would be tough. Have you ever been locked in a room and had to like break a door to get out?
I have not. No, have you?
I've been trapped in an elevator. I was trapped in an elevator
Ooh.
once for an hour on our 8th grade trip in Ottawa.
Wow.
It was
Horrifying.
a long time, dude.
You and like who? And how many other people in the elevator?
It was like 4 of us.
There's just kids? Like, did you have a supervisor, an adult with
I
you?
don't think so. No.
Oh, no. Wow.
I
Quite the
can't even
memory.
remember how we got word to them because I didn't even have a cell phone at this time. This is like late 90s.
So were you scared?
I wasn't scared. It was just, and of course our bus, they didn't wait for us. They just took off because.
What? You're kidding.
Everyone was going for breakfast, and it was like, we either wait for the 4 kids that are trapped in the elevator or we go for breakfast. And they chose
You're kidding
breakfast.
me.
Yeah, we had to then hightail it to get the breakfast once we got freed from the elevator.
So it was just like, a bunch of our students are trapped in the elevator. No big deal. They'll fend for themselves.
Pretty much. They knew we were in there, and they still decided to go. So
Goodness, wow. Okay, well.
Thanks a lot, 8th grade. Anyway, couldn't break out of the elevator and wasn't going to try any crazy, like, climbing up on top of the elevator. It's like, I'll just wait.
So
I'm
MJF
a
should
patient
have-
individual.
MJF should have lured them in the elevator is what you're saying.
That would have been the key. So then they're trapped in there. MJF limps out to the ring, stating Danielson is scheduled for a match here in shitty El Paso, which this is not the audience that wants to be told of their city being anything less than stellar. So the crowd is just hating on MJF, and Aubrey is instructed to ring the bell. So she does. And then we cut there, and boom, Danielson and Takeshita, this is like right out of a action film. They break out of this door. They fight past Preston Vance and Jose.
They don't just break out. Danielson smashes into the door's shoulder first, his injured shoulder.
Well, that wasn't smart. You've got 2 shoulders, one good one, one bad one.
Yeah, but come on, man. In case of emergency, use the bad shoulder.
It's my door-breaking shoulder. I got to use it. So Aubrey gave the world's slowest count imaginable, which an interesting trivia note was it was this day 7 years ago that Bryan Danielson announced his retirement on Raw in Seattle with a young Aubrey Edwards in the crowd that people have picked out over the years. So all these years later, they're doing an angle together on national television.
Dreams come true.
And Danielson not only made it to the ring, he had time to spare. On Aubrey's counting sequence, he had about 4 minutes left. So before she got from 7 to 10. So he was in great standing. And
I mean,
after,
intentionally slow, just because,
Of course, yeah,
she
she
knows
was-
it would have been wrong for like the referee to deliver a normal count, knowing the circumstances.
Well, after all of this, Danielson went out and produced one of the best matches you are going to see. I am going to fully put it out there. When this match was announced last week, I was very ho-hum on Roosh in this spot. And sometimes you just have to say, I was completely wrong. Completely wrong. This was among the best matches I've seen from Roosh. This was not just the Bryan Danielson show, although he was incredible in this match. But this was... I thought this was up there among Danielson's best. It was not Danielson's best match maybe in AEW, but I'm not... It's up there. In terms of TV matches, this was awesome. 15 and a half minutes, Danielson bled buckets, and Roosh was just the ultimate heel, breaking down his arm, slaps, chops. It was just a constant beatdown. One spot of Roosh's I hate. He always does it. It's the tease of the bull's horns, but then he pulls up and just does like the little face wash and then into the tranquilo pose. It's like, if you
Why do
can
you hate
finish
it?
him. Huh?
Why do you hate it?
Because it's like, you've got him there to hit your finisher. Why wouldn't you just hit the finisher? You'd be $600,000
Because
richer.
he's so cocky and confident that he doesn't need to. He'd rather take the opportunity instead of laying in offense. He'd rather use it to fuck around with your opponent and fuck around with the crowd. I mean, why does Naito do the same thing? Well, how come he doesn't dive to the outside and does this pose?
He doesn't do that like mid Destino where he's got him dead and he's like stopping the Destino.
But he's doing it mid offensive move. Or
He's also doing it in like the first minute or two of the match, typically. Like that's usually the first spot, send the guy to the floor and do it. This is, the guy's got him and he stops. He holds up on doing his finisher.
I think a bit of bravado from a heel is, to me, perfectly acceptable.
Not when 600 grand is at stake, which they stated was the figure he stood to make here. But anyway, that's my lone bit of criticism. But nonetheless, Danielson grabs the arm for the label lock, and Roosh gets away. The crowd is chanting yes, but then they move on to chants of C, and they were just awesome throughout this. They're chanting C for Danielson, no when Roosh would be in control. And then the two, we see a straightjacket pile driver by Roosh for a 2 count, and then they go at each other with headbutts, and they all looked like fine, except for one from Roosh that looked like he just cracked this dude. And that was the one that just, of all people, this is the last guy in the world I want to see taking an unprotected headbutt, and that looked like what Roosh nailed him with. Maybe this guy is an amazing magician when it comes to these headbutts, but dude, it looked like it cracked a man who literally retired because of these problems 7 years ago.
Definitely, I noticed one that looked like skull on skull.
It was the one. The rest all looked fine, but it was the
had
one.
Like their hands up. But like, you know, it certainly makes a viewer like me uneasy if you've kind of followed Bryan's, you know, concussion history. There are like a billion wrestling moves.
Anyone for that matter. Like, I don't want to see any guys doing this, regardless of history. It's just it takes me out of it because it goes from being like this great match you're invested into. And I don't think I'm alone in this either. I think a lot more fans are cognizant of that.
They could slap each other's in the face, you know, as a bit of co-promotion.
Well, the headbutt battle ends with a final flurry and Danielson hitting his second Busaiku of the match. Earlier, Roosh had kicked out of the Busaiku, but the second one keeps him down 15 minutes and 37 seconds. Unbelievable match. This was the match of the show, and that's a hell of a statement because there was quite the match to follow this too.
Yeah, I mean, as usual with Dynamite, I think you have several options, and depending on your preferred style of wrestling, you could go with several.
There were 3 really great matches on this show.
Yeah,
I thought.
MJF Takeshita, the Elite match was really great too. So if you chose any of them for match of the night, I wouldn't disagree with you. This one was certainly up there. When I saw the blood from Danielson here, I mean, it was one of those moments where like I'm watching AEW and I'm like, oh, okay, another dude's bleeding, like second one on the show. I wondered if it was necessary. By the end of the match, I completely understand why it was necessary to tell the story because you needed to have Bryan look incredibly heroic in overcoming this, first of all, the locker room deal, and then this incredibly brutal match against Roosh. You know, it's the type of exhaustive performance that you want from a hero like a Bryan Danielson, so that this match with MJF feels very earned. And I thought he completely achieved that. I thought Roosh was excellent here, really achieved that as well, of just kind of being, you know, arguably the biggest obstacle for Bryan Danielson in this entire, you know, MJF sort of like a handpicked opponent run. So I thought he was very nasty and he was very good. And this type of match from Danielson, I mean, I believe he said in the past that he lives for this sort of bloody match.
That's why he wanted to come to AEW. He said, I want to bleed.
Yeah, and Vince responded, I'm never able to give you that. So he's bleeding. You know, I don't know if he's bled too much in AEW. So, you know, Moxley is in on this show. So he's like, I'm going to bleed tonight. Takeshita bled, so what? Like, I'm going to do it too. But this was great. It was a great culminating moment that really kind of made this MJF match feel very earned.
Yeah, and you had MJF on commentary, and he was really good, getting nervous, and they'd have the cutaways to MJF as he's nervous. And then afterwards, the match is set for the pay-per-view, 60-minute Iron Man match on March 5th, and MJF attacks Danielson, applying the salt of the earth to the injured shoulder and striking down security members when they tried to break it, and then you had multiple security members trying to break the hold at the end. So there you have it, your main event, and it'll be a very interesting makeup of this card of how many matches you put on this pay-per-view when you're allotting 60 minutes to the main event.
Yeah, good point. I think another thing I've noticed is that MJF came out here with his knee bandaged. And, you know, I'm married to a physiotherapist, so like she'll always point out why somebody has their knee bandaged outside of their pants. Uh-huh. When you apply a Band-Aid, John, I don't know if you tend to do it on your shirt.
I put it over my jeans. Yeah.
He came out here with the knee heavily bandaged outside of his tracksuit. So, I mean, I think clearly telling you that as a result of this Takeshita match, he might have that knee injury going against him in the Iron Man match.
Is there an actual reason for taping it on the outside? Is there
No, fuck no. It's
none?
stupid. I mean, if you can't take, for some reason, I don't know, if it's an emergency, you can't get the pants off. But yeah, it's silly.
Maybe
the reason is to show everybody that, hey, I have a knee injury.
Okay. Well, there you go. It's pro wrestling physio. Yeah. The Elite against Top Flight and AR Fox for the Trios Championship. The beginning of this, Don Callis's mic wasn't working, and they fixed this audio problem in 10 seconds. Come a long way from 93.
Yeah, the audio technology has improved a whole lot since Randy Savage had mic issues in the February 15th, 1993 edition of Monday Night Raw.
I will do my best here. AR Fox went on, dude, this was like watching Super Mario powering up for this one sequence of cutters, and then dives onto the Bucks, dives onto Omega, then comes back for a Topicon Hero onto the Bucks. Like, this guy, like, his energy meter just does not go down.
No, not for these matches. No.
Matt then did a double Northern Lights while bridging Dante for a 2 count. We saw Fox with his inverted dive to the floor, then a super nose dive off the shoulders of Darius delivered to Nick Jackson, followed by a 450 from Fox for a near fall. Anytime you're getting like the audience buying all these near falls for the challengers, I would say that is mission accomplished, and they certainly did in this match. There is a slingshot by Fox, and he lands in the tombstone position with Matt holding him with an assisted indie taker by Omega and Nick, but the save is made. Nick delivers a moonsault to the floor, and it's Fox getting out of the way of the V-trigger. A knee then lands for Omega, Dr. Bomb, V-trigger, and he hoists him up for the one-winged angel, but AR Fox is still alive. He rolls through into the roll-up, and this crowd bought this near fall that AR Fox was going to pin Kenny Omega on television. And it ends with the two scrambling, and it is Omega with a simple counter to a crucifix that catches Fox in 14:38. I love that of all the things that get thrown against the wall, it's a crucifix that ends up winning it out of nowhere. This was amazing. On most, I would say 90% of shows that Dynamite put out, this would be my match of the show. But tonight, I did put Danielson Rush as number one. But this was phenomenal as well. The idea that you're getting these matches on television back to back is insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, I mean, I said it about them on Rampage this past week, but you know, having these trios championships and having the Elite as sort of like your featured act on these shows allows you to get incredible Bucks and Kenny performances without, you know, giving anything away in terms of significant tag team or singles match involving them, like you would on a pay-per-view. You can do as many trios matches as you can on TV, and they'll all be spectacular because they're special when the three of them are together. They're arguably, in many ways, I wouldn't say they're better than they are in their tag team or singles forms, but they're different, you know, and they're different enough to be very just like attractions on their own. And when you pair them against a team like Top Flight and AR Fox, I mean, I thought, you know, this was certainly my most anticipated match of the show. And if somebody chose it as their match of the night, I would not disagree with you. It's a type of match where they gave Top Flight about 75% of the offense here, and I thought those guys took full advantage. You know, we know the incredible chemistry Top Flight has with the Bucks, but this was a match where I think we really got to see AR Fox shine on TV, especially against the Kenny Omega. The way that they changed up that final sequence, I think everybody expected, you know, okay, like the Elite are going to win, one winged angel finish, but they, you know, I thought it was a great way to subvert our expectations by having AR Fox of all people counter the one winged angel and then recountering Kenny's counter to AR Fox's counter. Like, so they really kind of stacked things on top of each other, and I thought it was a great way of keeping people on the edge of their seat and delivering a surprise, even though the finish I think was pretty much expected from everybody.
By also saving the one-winged angel, it made me believe that maybe that's a singles match they're going to do on TV, because that's the match I wanted to see after this was Omega and AR Fox, and the finish, it does open it up to that to do on a future episode. We had a Beecher on Hook, and then Lexi is with Stokely Hathaway asking about the problems within the firm, and he is downplaying it, saying everyone's doing great. The problem he has is with Hook, and blames all of their problems on Hook, who ends up overhearing this, walking up to Stokely and grabbing him by the arm and telling him to watch what he says. So, man, Hook has just been sentenced from a wonderful burgeoning tag team to firm duty.
Yeah, it looks like this Jungle Hook thing is actually done. Doesn't seem like at least this week they're hinting at continuing, unless Jungle Boy is attached to this.
I guess we'll see. It's not as though there's a whole lot going on for Jungle Boy either. Though he will be in action on Rampage. They gave out the lineup here. So we have Moxley, Claudio, and Yuta against Kip Sabian, the Butcher, and the Blade. Jungle Boy will be in action. Ruby Soho takes on Marina Shafir, and we will hear from Mark Briscoe, which got quite the pop when his graphic appeared on the screen. So that is coming up on Friday.
I mean, at this point, this is the most interesting to me on Rampage, and I would say, a pretty strong attraction for a Rampage. We obviously haven't seen Mark Briscoe since the tribute match, and we never heard from Mark Briscoe, at least on TV. I mean, a lot of us heard from him at deliver his eulogy for his brother, but we've never heard him speak on AEW television. So I'm curious to see what he has to say, and it looks to me like this will be a full-time return for him, right? He's probably picking up going to give some hints about his next program, his first program, I should say.
Yeah, and the natural, they're going to have to announce this TV show pretty soon, you would think, with the tapings expected to take place at the end of the month. And
what direction do we have for the ROH Tag Team Championships?
It's a huge question. I mean, part of it is, I don't think anyone wants to see him just vacate the tag titles. And it, in a weird way, I could totally see the idea of, if it was a different setup, the idea of him teaming with Jay Lethal would actually make sense, but you've got Jay Lethal in a totally different role at this point. One idea that this is not my idea, but I did see people come up with, and it's a cool idea and would require them being re-signed and everything, is him and FTR going for the trios belts.
I love that. I mean, they've been rivals for the better part of the entire year, and I mean, at least to an AEW audience, I think they're probably the team that might be most closely associated with the Briscoes right now. So I love that idea, and who knows what's going on with FTR at the moment, but still doesn't answer the question about the tag team championships, though.
Yeah, and you would think by Supercard that's where you would want all this stuff to lead towards, of whatever direction they're
I really like the idea of Jay Lethal, pairing with him, and I like it enough that I think you sacrifice this heel team that he's got with Sanjay and Jeff Jarrett in order to try to make this work. It's a great excuse to turn him babyface,
and it's a partner everyone would accept and take, and it's you're putting someone into almost like Jay's role, and it's there's only so many people that you would be able to see being able to do that, and you've established that with Lethal. And then the main event, the Acclaimed defending the tag titles.
There's a little segment with the Impractical Jokers earlier in the show. That
you're right.
We don't have to talk about. They stole Floyd.
They stole the bat of Jericho's, and they have invited Jericho to come on their show tomorrow night to get the bat back. So I'm guessing Sting maybe turned this down.
Maybe they stole Sting's bat instead.
Imagine they stole the wrong bat.
That would be pretty impractical.
Crazy. What a joke. You got me. The Acclaimed and the Guns for the AEW tag titles. Max rapped about that you can never finish us like the border wall, and they're going to shoot them down like a Chinese spy balloon. Yeah.
Topical.
Very much so. They beat on Max on the floor, and long beat down spot until Bowens received the tag, and then they did a spot where a rolling elbow connected, and Stephon Smith, this guy took the referee bump of all referee bumps. So this man, he knew he had to be out for a long time, so he was going to make it look like he was on the brink of consciousness, and he gets knocked out to the floor. They continue. Austin grabs the tag title belt, and this prompts Daddy Ass to come down, and he's standing over Bowens, and everyone's thinking, man, this is it. He's going to screw the Acclaimed. But then as he winds up with the belt shot, he clears Bowens out of the way, and Billy stops Austin. So instead, Colton comes from behind and nails his father with the belt. The Acclaimed fight back. They hit the Arrival and mic drop, but Stephon Smith is still out. So Max has to go revive him, tosses Stephon Smith into the ring, and then we get a kick out with Bowen sent into the ropes and nailed with the belt from the floor. Austin rolls up Bowens, and we get the dramatic, slow 3 count by Smith. And the Guns win the tag titles in 10.5 minutes. And this was a first where Dynamite actually had some time to kill at the end of the show. Like, the music just played, and these guys just stood in the ring. The music ended, so then they played the Acclaim song, and you're always trained in AEW. It's like they are going to use every last second, that maybe they could shoot an angle in these last 60 seconds. But no, the show just ended, and they had like 2 minutes to kill at the end of the show. I can't remember this ever happening at Dynamite. It's just usually like a crazy sprint to that 10 o'clock minute.
I mean, could it have been the Hayter match, possibly being short by that exact amount of time? But you'd figure they'd have enough time to flex elsewhere. But
I'm not even complaining. Like, this actually, instead of just this ends and we're off the air in 10 seconds, it let the importance of this sink in. Like, the Acclaimed have lost the titles, and you got some crowd shots, and you had the reactions of the Acclaimed, you had the reactions of the Guns, and that's something you never get at the end of these shows, is digesting what you've just seen, because it's boom, 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 boom. We'll see you on Friday for Rampage, and you're out, and you're spinning. Whether this was a mistake or not, I think like there's a lesson here that when you do something big, give it a moment to fully digest, especially your main event that you're going off. Like, there's certainly stuff in the show that you can be on a quick pace and getting to the next segment. But I actually like this. Like, it was like this audience was shocked. I don't think they were necessarily expecting a title change. And
I wasn't.
Yeah, the Guns win the belts. And
I
would say,
go ahead.
Nothing. You go.
Well, to me, AEW title changes are typically like somewhere between like predictable or at least like not surprising. I don't think it's that often that they do like surprising title changes, and that's a good thing, because you could, it usually indicates like there's a good story that was being told to get up to build up to that title change. And that's why I think, for the most part, their titles are pretty well protected and significant. This to me felt rather shocking, or at least like surprising, because I still view the Guns as like pretty low level, like, in terms of tag teams, and at least compared to the Acclaimed, compared to maybe like a Swerve in Our Glory or like, other tag teams that have previously been champions. I didn't see them at that level of being, a world championship team. The build itself, I thought, was kind of comedy based, but they went with what I thought was a pretty surprising title change here. And I think we could assume that maybe this is just their way of setting up an obstacle for the Acclaimed before they get their belts back, likely at the pay-per-view, or maybe they don't get the belts back. I don't know, but it was a surprising finish. I do have concerns, with the Guns as your champions, because I think unlike a lot of the previous tag team champions that you've had, there's a certain level of expectation for in-ring ability. And I don't think the Guns have reached that level yet. They're great personalities, and I think they've made great strides as like entertaining sort of like, acts that I feel are more kind of mid-tier at this point. But in-ring is where I really do question it. But we'll see what type of storytelling they tell, for the rest of this Acclaim feud. I'll say, like, I think the Billy Gunn tease in the middle was not at all effective. But maybe they just needed something significant involving Billy Gunn for this title change.
Yeah. No, I think the Acclaimed, it's not imperative that they get the belts back to them. It would be, to me, it would come down to what is happening with FTR. Because if you feel that they are sticking around, I could get away with doing a really short Guns title reign, and you get these belts to FTR. And if they're not coming back, I would want to get that win for the Guns. Like, FTR does one last match before they are going off, and you get that win for a team, and the Guns are as good a choice. You've already done the angle, so you should get to the match regardless. And And if they're sticking around, like, you could just do a short title reign for the Guns, and then FTR win the tag belts, and then you've got the Acclaimed in the mix as well. They want to get their shot back. You've got a thriving tag division. So to me, FTR is kind of the key to this tag picture and where they're going with it. But I would want to do that the Guns FTR match, because you did the eulogy, and I think you have to deliver the match, whether they're staying or going.
Agreed.
So there you have it. I thought overall Dynamite, man, with just those 3 matches was excellent. To get 3 high quality matches like that on a 2-hour show, I'm going to be really hard pressed to be negative on a show like that. Certainly the women's match was, the low point match wise. And then I'm sure the promo is what a lot of people are going to be talking about with MJF, people that thought it was great for the character or not. But obviously, like, they do not want any attributes of MJF as the cool heel that people are just so entertained by. They want you to dislike this character and even the process of what he is using for heat. And I think that's the line they're going. And it will piss people off, but it is being done very much with that reason, where you are pushing these buttons that are going to be sensitive to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought they did a good job of, putting the focus on the Revolution main event tonight, making it official, first of all, but also to really heat it up with that match from Bryan, with that promo from MJF, with the match from MJF and Takeshita, which I thought was excellent. Anytime you have 3 matches that I think you could choose from, of high quality, that you could choose from as being match of the night, it's a good edition of Rampage. And this show was like a lot of the Rampages we've seen recently, very, very, like, in terms of in-ring quality in-ring content. I thought there was a lot of it, and strong build towards your pay-per-view.
All right. If you have any super chats, you can send those in to us, and we will be going to forum.postwrestling.com, where you can always leave your feedback after shows as well. So where do you want to start, Wai?
Let's go to one super chat here. This comes to us from Howie, who says, who sends $2. Thank you for the support, Howie. He says, where did Hikaru Shida go?
This is addressed to you, Wai.
Oh, what? Let me look up her recent history, because it's been a while since we've seen Hikaru Shida. I suppose on TV. Has she been in America? I think that's an interesting question. So let's look it up. It looks like she's in Japan right now. She recently, or at least January 1st, had a match in Wave. Has not had a wrestling match since January. So it's a great question.
Yeah, the last we saw her, it was like throwing in the kendo stick, remember, into the middle, and she was involved in the whole Saraya Tony Storm thing, where she was sort of caught in the middle.
Yeah, so is she even in the country right now?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. Sorry, Howie. All right, let's go to the forum, and we start off with Benjamin. Dynamite was an okay show tonight. The Danielson-Rush match was very violent. Having the Acclaim chase the Gun seems like an impulsive move. We're back to a single women's segment and poor storytelling with unexplained or contextualized character actions. Lately, AEW booking doesn't seem like it's grounded in the intent of consistent storytelling. It feels like Dynamite is booked for the pay-per-view cycles with some paint-by-numbers storytelling leading in. I like MJF's performances, but more heel making a babyface in Dirt Trials feels a little uninspired at this point. I'm happy to get matches like Danielson and Rush and previously Thatcher. I also realized that we were likely spoiled with one-time runs like Hangman against the Elite and Punk against MJF, but I'm finding something missing since Full Gear and AEW doesn't really have a true north right now.
It certainly is a trope that I think they're verging on, overusing of, like, the heel, particularly MJF or Chris Jericho, making the babyface jump through hoops in order to get to them. So hopefully they are a bit more aware of maybe that sort of sentiment. AEW booking doesn't seem like it's grounded in the intent of consistent storytelling. Do you agree with that?
I don't know what he quite means by consistent storytelling. Like, they are consistently telling stories, but I need more specifics about that critique.
I mean, this MJF Bryan story, I think has been very consistent, outside of maybe the weirdness of, like, William Regal suddenly not being part of the story at all. or at least them not mentioning him.
Which was a rough transition to write him off and then get to this, which, to their credit, they have gotten away, where Regal is not front and center anymore, which it's very hard to do that. They've kind of moved on to its own thing. But again, like we're also contrasting where, for a lot of people, they are looking at like these 4-week cycles that you get in a WWE format between big shows to, we're going from November the 19th until March the 5th.
Yeah, it's huge.
Between pay-per-views. And we started Danielson MJF pretty much at Full Gear. Like, that was from the TV coming out of that, you knew what the direction was. And they have had to do this for months at this point to get there. So I look at it, I'm not so much a stickler to, well, this is similar to this. I'm kind of looking at, well, was this good? And to me, the Danielson matches have been a highlight of television. Yes, we know where they are going, but I don't think that has hurt like the twists and turns that people had believability in when they're, gripped by a compelling match and ultimately wanting to get to that destination. That's the key. It's not so much surprising you where we're going. It's more so, where we're going. We're trying to get you excited for where we're going. And that's the hope.
All right, let's go up next to Bruce Lord, who says, like last week, this was an action-focused Dynamite, keeping the show's in-ring standard aloft in the new year. It was nice to see AR Fox get a deservedly high-profile spot. And while I've made a number of comments in the past about Rush's AEW run not having many memorable matches, I'm more than happy to eat my words tonight. It'll be great with a New Year's distance to look back at the intensity and range of the matches Danielson's had on his way to his challenge with MJF. On another note, the opening match was great, but I feel like AEW needs to capitalize on the connection Takeshita has organically developed with the audience in some manner other than well-received losses like tonight's. Whether that takes the form of the Don Callis involvement that's been teased, defeating Cassidy for the Atlantic belt and defending it on both sides of the ocean, or some other means. Which ocean? Bruce, because...
Well, the All-Atlantic title represents every ocean, even though its name does not.
Okay. Yeah. The fulfillment of Takeshita's star potential can't be accomplished through goodwill alone. Am I worrying too much, or would you guys like to see some tangible elevation of him in the short term? Absolutely. I think I echoed a lot of your sentiments earlier on in this program. It's all well and good to have, how many Dante Martins can you have, that like always impress? How many Phoenixes can you have, that where they always impress or Banditos, like, kind of, you name it. Like, there's just sort of like mid-tier that is always going to receive these well-received ovations for their attempts at beating a top guy. They'll get their standing ovation, at the end of a match where they've lost, but the follow through for almost all of those names has been very lacking because you tend to not see them anymore after that, significant loss. And Takeshita, the difference is that he is in a TB role, like he's in a consistent role now, especially attached to Bryan. I think tonight he had a very specific role to play in giving fuel for Bryan's revenge, towards MJF. So I'm curious to see how they follow up. Does it need to come in the form of a championship? Eventually, yeah. Does it need to come in the form of a championship for this particular storyline if you want to elevate Takeshita?
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious based on his handling. Like, they are not oblivious to this fact. Like, they clearly see what everyone else does in Takeshita, but again, it always goes to the timing. Like, you can miss the mark, and you can't take this momentum for granted because it can shift, and there is that one loss that it's just going to take that oomph out of it that makes it special and unique, that you want to be able to capitalize on it and at the same time maximize it for the most amount of value. I would say in the short term, I would be very much leaning towards the idea of Danielson and Takeshita having this relationship that is separate from the BCC. And if that can maybe lead to like Takeshita and Claudio, maybe for like Supercard, like that is to me the kind of stepping stone for a Takeshita headlining a big show. And maybe that is something you go with where it's, I don't think anyone's expecting him to win the world championship, but on the AEW side, but maybe that is, that's one area to go to.
I'm curious to see what sort of storytelling they can do with him. I still feel like AEW is somewhat unproven with like their Japanese or like their non-English speaking stars in their ability to create like, you know, compelling, significant feuds where they have a lot to say or do and just kind of like motivation. So I'm curious to see if they could achieve that with Takeshita, because in ring, the man can't be better than he already is. Speaking of Bryan, we got a super chat here from Matt, who sends $2. Thank you for the support, Matt. He asks, is Bryan still in the Blackpool Combat Club?
Yeah, I think he still has his certificate of inclusion in his wallet, in his tree wallet. Yeah,
he's got the fob. That's required to enter. Yeah.
Johnny writes, fantastic Dynamite minus one thing. Love seeing Takeshita get more and more over. Roosh has been my standout signing from the past year. Hearing the stories of his ROH run made me a bit hesitant, but he's been knocking it out of the park. He's everything I was hoping Andrade would have been. Trios match, just stealing match of the night, but that ending, I feel like they were expecting the Gun Club to have massive heat, but the crowd didn't care. They haven't built Gun Club to the level of heels where boos were going to happen when they won. Do you think this title change signals that FTR have resigned, since I think it would be pointless just to have the Acclaimed win it back? I think FTR, that's the big question. I would say that it would only make sense that FTR would challenge them for the tag titles. I think that match happens regardless, and then it's just a question of, do you put them over for the titles, or are they coming back to lose to the Gun Club? And that would maybe tip their hand of what's in store for FTR at this point.
What are so if they aren't re-signed, what would be the last time you could do that? Like when are their contracts up, essentially? Like,
I think they had said I think Dax had said April.
Right. Okay, interesting. So you could do it. You could fit it in for Revolution.
Absolutely, yes.
Right. We go to Saeed from Vancouver, who says, a very fun episode of Dynamite. Match of the night for me was MJF versus Takeshita. Really wish we could see MJF wrestle more. I somehow forget how good he is until I see him wrestle again. Just when I think they can increase my hype for the Iron Man match, they somehow bring it up every week. A hot crowd left silent. That is so rare for AEW to do. Speaking of the main event. There.
Jordan in the Bronx. I can't remember a time where Dynamite went off the air with a silent crowd, save for the Dark Order beating down the Elite. I would say the Satnam Singh reveal. Do you remember that one?
Was that to close Dynamite?
That was at the end, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Serious balls to put the tag titles on the Guns without a Billy Gunn heel turn. I suppose it's a way to get to FTR when they return. The wrestling on the show was great. Hopefully the bunny is okay. The MJF promo went a direction I was not ready for. Takeshita continues to be fantastic, and I love how much TV time Roosh is getting. The Saraya and JAS stuff hasn't clicked with me yet. Sylvia's is good, but the better mac and cheese place in Harlem is Amy Ruth's. Yeah, this is in reference to Stokely's mentioning to Hook that he would take him to Sylvia's.
Interesting.
So
okay,
hit up Amy Ruth's if maybe that would connect with Hook.
Giving Mindy's a run for her money in promotional local food chains named after women. All right, let's go to Steve Grosweed, who says, this was a crazy show. The Elite match was incredible. The main event got awkward at the end. We'll see where it goes. Brian Quinn from Impractical Jokers also co-hosts a podcast with Kevin Smith's friends called Tell 'em Steve Dave. He mentioned on that show a while ago that he was potentially going to be training for a wrestling match and hasn't spoken about it since. So I'm expecting that this angle on their premiere will lead to a match between him and Jericho in some form. For a smaller building, it felt like a big show. Yeah. Do they have room on Revolution for this, John?
I pray they don't.
Brian Quinn versus Chris Jericho.
Yeah. Step aside Ricky Starks. Maybe that's the direction we get. From John Cino. From a reporting standpoint, the last couple of weeks have been much easier to write about, as it feels like the pacing was much better and gives more room to breathe. Something happened tonight that made that not click. 1 second, the Elite is celebrating. Then they had to rush to a Hook video promo for some reason. This show was so busy. Excalibur didn't even announce any matches for Dynamite. The Saraya Tony Storm match just isn't working for me. At least they didn't put J's to their forehead to build to a future tag team match against the Bellas. With GCW announcing Nick Gage versus Mike Bailey next week, how about putting the title on Speedball and have him defend it all Mania weekend? He has to fight Ospreay, Ibushi, and Vikingo within 24 hours. That's right, he's got the Vikingo match as well. That is insane what Speedball has that weekend. I forgot about the Vikingo match for spring break.
I don't think he's beating most of these guys. So I don't know if GCW, I don't know if the belt would work for these particular matches. I don't see him beating Ospreay. I don't see him beating Ibushi.
I don't care what belts are involved, and I don't care who wins these matches. Those are going to be three of the biggest matches of the weekend of any cards.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Fight should just like, have like a speedball special. You could charge like $10 and just follow all of his matches.
That's going to be the next thing. Wrestlers get the rights to their own streams for their matches. Yeah. You got to pay a la carte for their match. You don't have to. You don't have to buy the whole card. You can just buy the speedball match for like a certain amount.
I'm sure that idea has probably been thought about, but I mean, how much do you like? Do you do it like iTunes used to, like $1 a song? Like, what if one match is 60 minutes, another match is 30 seconds?
It'd be an interesting. I don't think it would do well, but it would be really interesting if you went back and like Fight tried that for a major card. Like say even like let's take a AEW show. It would be really interesting if you could buy the pay-per-view replay for your whatever it is, $40, or you just put each match up and each match is like $5, and which matches would literally get the most like money attached to it. That would be really just an interesting test, and it would have to be something at the scale of an AEW, of someone that doesn't want to spend 40 but would want to spend maybe $15 on the three big matches.
If
why don't you create this?
If the technology, you're asking me.
We'll sell our segments, okay, instead of the whole show.
Sure. Okay. So every review of a match is its own thing that we
instead of a free show, you can pay for individual segments.
Well, where does it end, John? Like, why not individual sentences? Every individual words we could charge. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a lot of work on the back end to have to segment all that, but one fee.
Would you not do that for the amount of wrestling you watch? If you were just seeking out, like, how many shows do you go and grab where it's like one match you're looking out for?
The answer is yes. I think that would be very interesting to see. Now, I don't know if like there's value in segmenting every single match. I think you can offer maybe the main event, of let's say like a New Japan show, or Stardom or something. Like something like Stardom might be a perfect sort of example. You hear so much about like, these like main events, but somebody might not want to commit to an entire show. Like how much would you justifiably charge for like a really hot Stardom main event?
Well, it would depend on if it's, I mean, for a Stardom pay-per-view, like those Stardom pay-per-views are around like $40.
Okay. So
if you're taking, say, the top three matches and you're putting a price of like the whole goal would be there's so many great matches, just buy the pay-per-view. Like that would be the hope. But at the same time, there's people that are not going to buy a $40 pay-per-view, but you can still get revenue out of these people that might be interested in dropping for the hot match that everyone's talking about.
Well, there's that. I think the bigger value is just to get people into your credit card system, so that they have an easy one-click way of like, being able to now like be attached to Stardom World or something like that.
Well, that would be the technology that would be superior, is that you insert your credit card information and it's just an instant click for a match.
Yeah.
And I think you would get recurring business for big shows like that where you made that. And what is it other than, launching something with this kind of back end to it? Like once it's up and going, like it's just offering individual files. Like it's not a whole lot of extra work beyond creating this behemoth of a back end site. But if someone smarter than me put this together, I would be very curious to see if it would have that kind of appeal, or if that's just not in fans' kind of habits of buying individual matches. It's sort of you're either watching the show or you're not interested. But it would be an interesting experiment.
It would be, yeah. A lot of, I think, promotions are kind of offering their matches like for free, like heavily buzzed about matches for free as sort of like a calling card to like get some eyeballs. I almost wonder if there's like more benefit to like charging $1 for the match, again, just to kind of get people familiarized with your streaming system and platform, and truly maybe attaching some value and maybe seeing some form of return just based off of some of that curiosity. It's an
Mania
idea.
weekend would be the time to do it. Is like at the end of that weekend is people going back. Nobody's watching all these shows, but you are going to have lists of the top 15 matches of WrestleMania week.
Yeah. But you know, again, with something like Fight Plus, like it's like what, $5?
At this point, you're not.
It's the price. It's
just,
not much
you
more
might
than
as
like
well.
what you would.
Yeah.
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 Exactly.
They've underpriced it. Like I would not be at all. I don't think you would have any disagreement about dropping, you know, like a lot more money than $5 for some of these shows. So it's like, I think they've greatly underpriced it, but I think they're playing the long game. They want people to sign up for the service, and they will sacrifice whatever extra revenue they could make that weekend for people that are going to sign up and stay with the service.
It's the same philosophy as, you know, them putting WrestleMania as part of the WWE network.
It's the same.
So, yeah.
Okay, let's go to Muggin. Is it me?
All right, Muggin says, passable show despite some bright spots with Takeshita and Friedman, the trios match, and Rush and Danielson. The tag title match was overbooked to the max. Billy Gunn's presence signaled a swerve, except there was none, and the ending was a dud. This Saraya Tony heel turn and heel act is falling flat. Is it just me, or does Jericho and Stark's feud appear to have hit a brick wall? You're probably not alone in feeling that way. I thought tonight was at least somewhat productive in, you know, giving us a further reason of wanting to see Ricky Starks finally beat Chris Jericho. But I do think, at least at this point, like Starks having already beaten him, and maybe even throwing the Action Andretti loss, you know, that Jericho suffered as well. That might have ultimately affected like the point that we're feeling right now of like a win over Jericho not meaning a whole lot for Ricky Starks. I think the Action Andretti one was definitely worthwhile. But you know, have they built up like Jericho's heat enough to a point where a second win means anything? I don't know if the answer is yes yet.
Maybe Ricky Starks shows up on Impractical Jokers.
That could do it. I mean, Bryan Quinn is really the match that I think we're all building to here. That's Ricky Starks is a setup guy for Bryan Quinn.
That's how it should be. Cody from Maine is our last piece of feedback. As usual, a strong Dynamite between the ropes that was boosted by a hot crowd in a new market. Still not sold on the original storyline or the decision to extend the Jericho-Starks feud, but those are the only two aspects of the show that aren't clicking for me. So pretty consistent in those two, kind of weighing people down. Might be a less popular take, but I'm perfectly fine with the Guns winning the tag titles. I get that they're not the most complete product within the division, but I'm intrigued to see where they go. I sense the same. It's like, I did not take that reaction from the crowd as a rejection. I thought it was like legitimately stunning to this audience that the Acclaimed lost the titles, and I didn't view it as like this negative mark on the Guns either. You know, they're a much improved act. I can understand people's hesitancy, like they are not as advanced as others, but I also think they've made great strides, and this could end up being a very short title run. And if this gets them to the next level, then great.
Yeah, I feel like AEW has kind of like set a standard for like, you know, when you've maybe Jade Cargill aside, because like she's really kind of brand new, but that's also a brand new title. But at least with the tag team titles, like look how long like a Jurassic Express kind of had to wait before getting there, right? Like you have to be somewhat proven, and you have to like, you know, have a certain level of the audience's like desire and momentum behind you, even as a heel tag team, I would say, you know, before you get handed that ball. Now, like this talking point, I think would be moot if it is like, in fact, just like if they're just playing transitional champions for an FTR, right? Then I think this does make sense. But you know, if they are indeed like kind of being given the ball, so to speak, to lead a division, I definitely understand why there would be skepticism.
All right, that wraps up Dynamite from El Paso, Texas. Would you call this a strong show, Way?
Yeah, I would. Like 3 really good matches on the show.
I think we're very spoiled when you're getting that level of matches. But that's almost becoming the norm on some of these shows. But tonight was, I thought, really, really impressive when you're getting 3 matches of that caliber. Way and I are back on Friday night because Way demands. We can't go more than 48 hours without solving all the world's problems. So we will do so again Friday night, 11 Eastern, here at the Post Wrestling Cafe. So jump on board, get all caught up on February of 1993, a riveting time in World Wrestling Federation history as they took on the media. And join us Friday night. We'll be chatting about SmackDown, the road to Montreal, and then Rampage, featuring the Blackpool Combat Club in action, Jungle Boy, and plenty more. So there you have it. As Way is being overtaken by Bars and Tone. But we will say goodbye.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
That was it.
We were doing so well up until this point.
It threw me. It threw me. So there you have it. I thought you were maybe doing some special effect of some sort. That's it for us. Good night. Have a wonderful night. Have a wonderful Thursday. Way, are you excited about February the 9th?
I'm excited about every day, so yes.
Hey, last trivia note. Do you know what happened in Toronto on this date 24 years ago?
Okay. I have no idea. What?
It was Raw at the Skydome.
Oh.
Over
Great.
40,000 people.
Wow.
Good
Thanks.
night.